You guys know why we're here. We're here for techniques for tailoring AI inputs. We're so happy to have our speakers from RoundTable Technology, Kim Snyder, the VP of Data Strategy, and Joshua Peskay from 3CPO, which is the first time I've ever seen that, but congrats on that title. We're super excited. For those of you who joined us for the first in-person meeting last week, this is the second part of our AI series virtual, and we really wanted to kind of bring this AI experience home, first introductory and kind of continuing on as we keep learning together. Next slide, please. So a lot of you know about nonprofit Westchester, but for those of you who don't know, we're the county's sole membership association dedicated to strengthening the nonprofit sector. And we have about 300 plus members, which is inclusive of nonprofits and some businesses. And we're really only as strong as our membership. So next slide. So if you haven't joined us yet, please consider doing so. Like I said, we are only as strong as our membership, and we really love the partnerships that come from our community, from the nonprofits and including the business sector. And really this AI series has come because you guys have requested it. Next slide, please. We would like to thank our series sponsors for the AI series. So we have Westchester County Board of Legislators, Brown & Brown, CMIT Solutions, and Mercer. I would like to mention and give a shout out to Nikhil Jaga. He was at the in-person, he was an in-person panelist speaker, and he's also one of our sponsors. So thank you, shout out to Nikhil. And also, we also want to just highlight our sponsors in general. We have sponsors at the Funder, Platinum, Gold, Silver sponsor. Thank you again for our agency sponsors. And I think that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to dive right into give it to Kim and Joshua to take us through this AI inputs panel. And thank you so much for showing. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I'm Kim Snyder, and it's great to be here. It was so, I so enjoyed giving the webinar or giving the in-person presentation last week. And I'm glad that many of you are back and maybe some people who are here for the first time with us. So first question is for you. Where would you say you are on the prompt creation continuum? This is a poll is coming up. Are you a newbie, advanced beginner, becoming a wizard, guru? I initially added one that was like, what's a prompt? You can put yourself in newbie category if that's
I think that is a prompt, isn't it? What's a prompt? I think it's a prompt.
we can ask the AI that actually. So I don't know. So go ahead.
About 86% have participated so far. Anyone else? No one's a guru so far.
Okay.
All right, 86% is good.
That's
okay,
good.
Here you go. Here are the results.
All right, some newbies. We have some becoming a wizards and advanced beginners. Excellent. And 76% newbies. Well, you have come to the right place. I think you've all come to the right place because there's always more to think about with prompts. And you know what? No one's really a pro. I mean, how long has it been around, right? So going on to the next slide.
Well, I just want to say, Kim, really quick, one of the recurring themes I would say today is like, I would encourage everybody to think of themselves as never going beyond an advanced beginner in prompting in terms of beginner mindset and the idea that we're all learning this and the systems are changing all the time. That'll be a recurring theme today. Sorry, Kim.
But Josh, I thought you said I was a guru.
Kim, yes.
So understanding, okay, so prompts are basically, in a nutshell, the questions that we put into AI. It's working with AI systems, the generative AI systems that we're talking about today, is much more about kind of talking to a system, asking it questions. It's English. It's much more about asking questions and learning how to ask these systems questions than about technology or having tech skills. So I think we can speed through some of this because we're gonna get into some actual prompts. Talked about this last week, but just in case there are people who weren't there, and to reiterate. So when we talk about today, we're talking about generative systems, and we're going to start with talking about text and text prompts. And we have on the left side the free products, and there are many. I encourage people to try different ones. They all have different personalities and different ways of working. I go to different tools for different needs. So ChatGPT 3.5, Claude, wonderful writer. They keep always getting improved too. Especially Gemini and Claude seem to be upgrading regularly. And then on the right, we have paid systems, and ChatGPT Plus or 4.0 is the one that I'll say I personally use the most, except when I need to find something that's on the web, incorporate that in my prompt, then I will often go to Gemini or Copilot. And if I need something that's a little bit more writerly, I'll go to Claude. Okay. So, and this is me, and we'll talk about practice. Practice is one of the main things to do to learn how to do this prompting stuff. So this is the tool set. And so think about it as it's a brainstorming partner, right? You can ask questions of AI. When I've worked with people who are new with AI, I've been asked the question, well, I'm trying to learn how to, adapt my curriculum. And what if I ask it this? And I'll just say, try and see what happens. See what you get back. The worst thing you get back is an answer that you think, let me start over again. And as I said, it's 24/7. It's never going to say, you've asked me that already, right? So you can just keep trying. So it's wonderful for kind of getting through the blank page, for brainstorming, first draft, first though, and not final. We're going to touch upon risks today, less so more in the following session that's going to be in June. But it's a great way to start a draft. It's a great, it can be a thought partner, and you can really go in any kind of direction. But there are some tips for making it work a little bit more effectively now. Okay, so it is a constantly changing technology. But the principles we're going to go through today have been pretty constant for a while. All right, so a couple things. Talk to it like you would a person, okay? You can ask the AI, I need you to do this. What is the best way for me to do that? Okay, it isn't thinking, and we'll get to that in a second. And just as a general rule, I say please and thank you to it when it does it. Like, thank you, that was great. Now can you do this one? I literally got through a report yesterday in 40 minutes that would have taken me, I don't know, 4 hours before. Josh knows this because I did this report and I had 40 minutes and I had to get this thing and and it kept giving me these formatted answers in ways I had asked it to. And I thank you so much. Here's the next one. So I don't know. It's good to be polite. You can go on. I'm still kind of amazed at that yesterday. Okay, so this is the video for those of you who were there last weekend. Tanmay was speaking in Spanish. Here it is in English. And I think it's really helpful to understand kind of what's going on under the hood a little bit. And this is a good explanation, the best I've heard.
Say if you ask ChatGPT, what's AI going to do in the future, right? The way that ChatGPT generates a response for you is actually really interesting. It's effectively just entirely statistical language modeling. Given a sentence or given some sort of prefix, GPT's entire goal, its entire objective, is simply to take those words and predict of all the tokens in its known vocabulary, the probability of any one of those tokens being the actual genuine next token in the sequence. That's all that GPT is doing. What you're seeing right now is a genuine visualization of the way that GPT, specifically GPT-2, would generate a response. It is simply taking words and predicting the probabilities of which word will come next.
So that's an important principle to bear in mind. When you think about it, it's not thinking. What it has done, it's consumed a ton of data, like a ton of data. And based on that data, it's still consuming data. We're giving it data every day. It's doing probabilistic statistics, okay, underneath that. What's the most likely next word? So important to remember it's not really thinking. So I did call it a thought partner. So
Yeah, well, I mean, in Ethan Mollick's book, Co-Intelligence, he indicates right away that he's going to anthropomorphize a bit around talking to these things as though they're kind of human-like thought partners, even though they're clearly not. And I think there is I won't get deep into that. What I will say is this idea of statistical probability as how these language models are delivering you outputs is really important in not just if I want to ask it a question, the context of that question is part of that statistical modeling. So if I want to ask how quantum mechanics works, would I rather hear from a professor of quantum mechanics from a leading university, or would I rather hear from a second grader who likes cats about quantum mechanics? That context, right? If I tell the large language model, I would like you to have a 2-year-old who knows nothing about quantum mechanics explain quantum mechanics to me, I'm going to get a very different response because of that probabilistic statistical modeling. So that's really important in how you interact with these models. And that's why you'll hear so much advice about giving it a role, right? So jumping in, these are like having large language models available to you is like having an infinite number of interns that are really constrained only by your ability to spend time interacting with them, asking them to do things for you and giving them feedback on those things. That is literally the only constraint at this point. It's just your time to ask for things and then give feedback on, yes, this is the thing I wanted, or no, it's not. And so you can have them write virtually anything for you, from drafts and blank pages, summarizing long articles, editing text, giving you feedback on text, helping you think through something. And again, these interns, right, you can tell them who they are. So yes, it can be a PhD quantum scientist, at MIT, but it's still going to be an intern because it's not really a quantum scientist from MIT right now, which is hard to understand, but you'll get used to it the more you work with these systems, right? And so the main thing is that you have to have some way of validating the output of these systems, right, to ensure that you're not going to take something that's given to you. So if I ask for an explanation of string theory, I'm not going to know if what it tells me is in any way true or not. So that's a risk, right? If I'm now going to go teach that to somebody else, I might be teaching something that is entirely not factual. All right. So Kim, do I talk this one through?
I do.
Okay. So there's no audio in this. I don't know, this doesn't want to go full screen, but hopefully this is large enough. So this is Copilot, and Kim recorded these videos. So she's asking, as she would as an assistant, to provide some research on amphibian habitats in desert environments. She specified a specific output for it, which is RLA, and Copilot excels at this sort of work. And Copilot in its current, this is Microsoft's tool, is much less likely to cite sources that it made up. Whereas some of the other models will, there's a famous law case about this, will quite often just make up a source and cite it, or make up a quote from somebody that they never said. Okay, so now Kim is doing the same thing with Gemini Advanced. So this is the paid version of Google's Gemini AI tool. All right, and you're seeing that you're getting a different output, right? It's a different style. Again, these are different interns. Okay, and not only are the different platforms, Google Gemini, Claude Anthropic, ChatGPT, not only are they different interns, but the roles you give them, right, and specific prompts that you provide are going to further make them different interns. So when I say you have an infinite number of interns that you can work with, I really do mean that, okay, of different styles and different capabilities. And so here Kim is using, again, the paid version of ChatGPT, which is ChatGPT 4 currently. And this is one that really excels at the sort of task that Kim is doing right now. But even on the paid version, even on ChatGPT 4, will be more inclined to make things up. Kim, anything I'm missing that you want to point out from what we're
No, I
watching
mean,
there? Okay.
this was just to give people a sense that like it can do a range of things. And this is just to kind of get us started. So it did a little bit of research and it did some social media. Um, that's about it. Just
Yeah.
examples.
And I'm going to go back to this additional thought. I would say you can do very little. You can just ask the large language model to do something for you with no context, with no examples, with no, any of the fancy things we're going to teach you over the next 30 minutes here. And you'll probably get good results most of the time. But when you want to really get something that's at a higher quality or get more specific or granular or experiment to see what you can get, I would say the core things are what you're seeing here. So giving it a role is very consistent advice you'll get across, and I've talked about why that role is part of the context of this statistical modeling. Okay, Kim and I will give different answers to different questions. So whether you want to hear from me or hear from Kim or hear from somebody else, it's good to tell it that. All right, telling it what you want it to do obviously is the easy part. The context around context is largely around what information you're providing it. And this is the other risk I would say that organizations face, is that you have to be careful not to provide these models with sensitive, protected information. So I would love, to go and paste in a long report of all of my donors and have it, create a bunch of marketing personas for all of those donors so that I can customize appeals to them. But if I'm not aware that my large language model is protected, I may be exposing all of that data to the training model, and that's a really bad thing. So the two main risks that people should be careful about with these are putting data into the prompt that you shouldn't be, and not validating stuff that comes out before you share it with the rest of the world. Okay, Kim gave a great example of describing the format I want: bullet lists, so on and so forth, a report, a table with, these 4 columns in it. They're fantastic, these large language models, at giving you exactly the format you want. If you want to, if you have a great example of exactly what you want, give it that example. Say, this is an example of the kind of thing I want. Please do this, but instead for this other thing. And again, as Kim pointed out earlier, ask, if you're not sure, ask it. Hey, this is what I want you to do. What's a good way to ask you? And they'll tell you. And just the more you work with them, the better you get. And we really encourage the use of some of the paid models if that's something you can afford, because the quality difference is substantial. And the difference between what you will get from you building your skills, working with better models, versus working with weaker models where you're kind of like, that's not that good, and now I stop working with it, and so I'm not getting better. That gap is very wide. Kim and I are seeing this even within our own organization, of the difference of Kim and I are using these every day for a variety of tasks, and other people are like, how did you get AI to do that? I can't ever get it to do that. And it's not because we're brilliant, it's just because we're using it a lot.
Now this is really not meant, you're not meant to, no one's meant to read this slide. This is a link to an article that I'll give you. It's and you'll get all these links, right, Amy? Suzanne, from nonprofit Westchester. But just this is just to say it's very tried and true. So sorry to interrupt. But.
Oh yeah, and by the way, like, there are a gajillion, and we're sharing a bunch of them in this thing, prompt libraries, people who created resources of very structured prompts to perform specific tasks. So by all means, don't go and try to recreate the wheel. Like, if you're trying to, create a project plan for something, I guarantee you someone out there has made a, project manager PMP prompt that creates a fantastic project plan, like him, who has made that. All right, so here's a more engineered prompt. Let's see if it'll let me. It's not letting me maximize these. I don't know why. So is this large enough? Can people see that? Or should I try to max the screen? I can try to fix why I can't make it larger.
Can you max the screen?
Yeah, let me see if I can. I'm not sure why.
What that prompt is doing is it's asking, I figured this was the type of thing that people do need. You are a nonprofit professional with decades of experience. I mean, I can read the prompt out if you want.
There we go. Yeah, you go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, you're a nonprofit professional, decades of experience. This is asking for help or a list of job interview questions if you're interviewing for a staff member who needs to have Salesforce skills. How many people have been in that position? When you're like, I don't know Salesforce. So I'm asking it for a list of 10 questions to ask the interviewee in bullet point format with a rubric that then helps me figure out if they answered it right. Right? So this is an example, yeah, of a more structured. I've told it what it is, a nonprofit professional with decades of experience in fundraising and knowledge about Salesforce. It's read everything on the internet for what, till October 2023. This is ChatGPT 4. So these are the kinds of questions. So this is the type of thing where it's a low risk type of ask, right? See what it gives you. See if it makes sense to you. These are pretty good. I do know Salesforce, and pretty good questions.
See if it'll let me, I'm trying to figure out why it didn't let me maximize it, so no worries. All right, is this still me, Kim?
This is still you. This is just the remember to, you know, AI's win version.
It will make stuff up. Yes, it will confabulate. It will, as we've talked about. If you haven't heard it before, it probably got mentioned last week, but the first not final human in the loop, all credit to George Weiner of Whole Whale, but that is a really nice shorthand for everything with AI. First not final, meaning it's great at doing first drafts, but should not ever be doing the final draft. Human in the loop. That is the way to do it. All right, back to you, Kim.
So now looking at image prompts. And people, I don't, anyway, again, the free tools there. This is the tool set. So Copilot comes with DALL-E 3, which is really quite excellent. Gemini also comes with images. They're free, so you can try to make images. Free-ish refers to tools that you can try it for free, but good luck not upgrading to the paid plan because it gets very tempting to do that. And then the paid plans, ChatGPT Plus comes with DALL-E 3. And Midjourney, which DALL-E 3 has gotten so good. I still have a Midjourney subscription, but I like almost never use it. So yeah, I would, if you want to do images, check it out with Copilot for free, and then you know, if you want to upgrade. Basic building blocks here. You know, again, you're describing what you want this time. And I'll get into the whole thing about, you know, you are, you know, this living artist, right? Or, you know, that's tricky, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But basically, adjective, noun, so a curious frog, analyzing data, so what's it doing in a comic book style. So you're basically telling it what you want it to do, what you want, what it's doing, and what style. And you have lots of like the styles are really quite endless. And if you go to the next slide, I think we get into the styles. So you can do like things like vibes, like something that's, you know, uplifting as a, you know, you can give it a vibe. You can tell it certain types of cameras it can use. Please give me a Polaroid image shot in the 1970s. Okay. You can ask for illustrations. And you can also, now this is like, notice I have the avoid copyright infringement warning little doodad there. Illustrations and art history. Art history, even I think it once it like blocked me from, I was trying to do something in the style of Picasso, and it was like, nope, sorry. And so I avoid now actual artist names. In the early days, I wasn't thinking it through either. And so now I'll say something like a postmodernist era painting, you know, in a cubist style or whatever, and not cite any actual artist names and things like that, especially avoiding contemporary artists and writers. This goes for writing too. And that's where you see all the copyright suits and stuff like that. You can also ask for three dimensions. I'd like this frog as a claymation. Okay, so you can ask And this is really fun to play with. That's why I say the free-ish plans, like good luck stopping at 10 or however many they give you for free. But you can try as much as you want with Copilot and Gemini.
Also note on the copyright side, you can at least currently copyright anything that you create with one of these AI systems. So if you make images that you're including in your materials for your organization, and you used AI to generate those images, you cannot copyright them on any level.
So, so here's just some examples, right? So you can be really simple, illustration of frog sitting on lily pad, right? But then you can give it a lot more detail. So here I said, no, I want it to have like glasses and be sitting, holding a book and, you know, have dragonflies around it. So you see, I can describe what I want. And, you know, types of colors and things like that. So I think, I think you can move forward. Here's example of styles. So this is for that amphibian workshop thing, but this is more like illustrations that you would want for a social media post where you're trying to, you know, promote an event. This is frogs in the desert, right? And you wouldn't use all of them, but you know, some of them give you good starting points. I went for the pinhole camera effect on the right. But it's really like quite endless and really fun. And spent a lot of time doing this as I have. So, you
And it
know,
didn't tell you that there aren't really desert inhabiting frogs. Those would be
there are,
toads. That frogs are there really? I would
yes,
think frogs don't they need water by definition?
my earlier AI.
Okay, I stand corrected.
So experiment. Again, same theme. All right, here's the copyright. Gotcha. Just the lawsuits. This is a grand time to become a copyright lawyer. Let me just put it that way. They are going to be busy for decades and they're going to make a lot of money because and we're at the beginning of this. People say, what do you think will happen? I have no idea. It's going to be settled in the courts over quite a while. But just remember, like Michael Chabon, the writer, who I actually like very much, is suing because I think like his content got picked up somewhere. And you know, so I wouldn't say write me you know, a short story in the style of Michael Chabon about this and that happening. That's an ethical question, but we need to be aware of that, especially living artists. Okay, you can and this is a cool thing. You can play this one. Image extraction. So you can give it images and ask it to extract text from it. So this is DALL-E, and Copilot also does this. So this is a diagram. Have you ever been given a diagram and you're like, ugh, I've got to retype everything in it because they gave it to me as a JPEG, yuck. And so it's like, there it goes. And it was right on. And then another thing it can do is explain the contents of an image. So what is this thing I'm looking at? So again, this is DALL-E 3. I'm giving it like, I think from the 40s or 50s, a subway map of New York City. And give me the context and help me to explain it to someone who is unfamiliar with the subject matter. So it kind of turns out this whole thing about this is the Bronx. So you can give it images and you can also extract the text from it. That was really cool when I saw that it could do that. I think, this is not that exciting. It's not that thrilling, but it was the IRT in the 40s.
Pretty cool. I was gonna say like let's see. If I pause it, I think I am trying to place myself on this map. Oh, this is different layout. Okay, because that's got the Bronx off to the east. That's so weird. Okay.
Oh, don't ask about the Deborah Brown asked the question, can it make an org chart? I wouldn't do that. You'll see this, we'll get there. When you ask it to make like any kind of infographic, you're better off in PowerPoint. You know, it's about learning.
It's remarkably bad in infographics at the moment, like laughably so. We can show that maybe if we have time. Yeah.
You know, so it makes no sense. And
but incredibly confident that it's very good at them.
we have one in here. So again, I think we've pressed this point, but just avoiding copyright infringement is the most important thing. So this we go into deeper dive. So these are the more complex prompts.
That's such a quality image, Kim.
I have a lot of fun with these images, all made with AI.
All right, so all right, so starting with search. All right, so this is Microsoft Edge browser, and one of the nice things if you're using Copilot, if you're a Microsoft 365 organization and you are willing to use the Edge browser, is you have integration right into the browser of Copilot. So I don't have to go out to Copilot and give it links or copy and paste things. I can literally go right to the site and say like summarize this thing for me that I'm looking at right now, or I want to ask questions about this thing or extract information from this thing, and that is super handy. So you've got that integration right there. Right now, as far as I'm aware, this only works in the Edge browser with Copilot, but very, very, very handy. I think, are you showing something else there, Kim? Yeah, so something else is coming up. Take a look.
I think it's just
It's down at the bottom. So does it discuss the role of nonprofit? So Kim, at the bottom, if you see way at the bottom of the screen, she's asking, does it discuss the role of nonprofit organizations in sustainable development? And Copilot's going to go read this through and answer that question.
okay. So I mean, I think this is I might have gone on for a while here, but yeah, I think it's a good way to interrogate documents.
Okay, so now she's asking, what does it say about the role of technology? So again, Kim's just interacting with this document, asking questions. How many pages is this thing, Kim? Like 100 and some?
It's probably 60, more than I was going to read.
Right. And so she can just ask questions. Now, again, it might be wrong about some of these things. So if it's really critical, you're going to want to validate. However, when you're interacting in this specific way, where you're asking it questions about a very specific document, in my experience, the current state of these models is pretty accurate. So unless it's a highly nuanced question that you're asking. And it will very seldom pull out an extract of the document that turns out not to be in the document. I find they're very, very reliable in that regard. All right, so continuing on.
I use this all the time. Document.
Yeah, sorry, I have to keep doing that in and out, but that's the only way to get the videos to maximize again. All right, so this is something that's called a chain of thought prompt. And so you see that there's this nonprofit, and what Kim is just adding is this: when creating a plan for us, use a step-by-step approach in your response, citing sources and give reasoning before sharing answers. That's literally all you have to do a chain. So if you think chain of thought, prompting sounds like really fancy. All you're doing is just including in your prompt, please, explain step by step, think through step by step what you're doing and explain it to me so I can understand how you're doing it. And this, again, I'll keep saying, in the current state of where these large language models, this proves to be a very effective approach, which makes sense, right? Asking it to think through how I'm doing it kind of creates a context, right, that increases the probability that you're going to get a response that's helpful to you, if that makes sense to everybody. So you're seeing getting a really excellent response, and it's kind of walking through what we're doing. I find this so helpful that we use a paid version of ChatGPT that allows us to have something called custom settings. So I kind of have in those custom settings the stuff you think, where I'm telling it who I am, the company I work for, the context in which I'm working the vast majority of the time. I also include a very comprehensive chain of thought type prompt where I tell it I want you to go step by step with everything, and then as a follow-up of then ask me 3 or 4 questions for further exploration on kind of things that might be interesting on this topic, which I also find incredibly helpful. So
well, I wanted
that.
to know that you'll be getting all of these prompts that we're showing you here after this. So don't feel like, oh God, this information dump of how I'm going to remember this. Not to worry. this is you'll get these as examples, so you can kind of copy them. So just wanted to go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, and so of these ideas, I will say that if you want to, my current experience, and Kim, you can tell me if this is that.
Yeah, one shot.
That this is by far what I find to be the most successful. And I couldn't tell you why, but you'd think few shot would in theory give you better response, where if I give it 4 examples of something, that would be better than just one, but it seems to do better with just one. And it does better with just one than with none. So if I have a good example of that kind of output I want, giving it that and then saying, here's a style, here's a report on this organization that I think is really good. Now I have this other organization and here's all the context and information. I would like you to produce a report that looks like that one, but on this organization. That does really, really well in my experience. And Kim, you're agreeing with that. Whereas if I give it 4 sample reports, for some reason it does much worse. And I don't know why.
You think if I give it more stuff, like more content, I think it's like it might confuse the probabilistic statistics. It's giving it too much input.
And again, fancy terms that you'll hear in prompting, don't be intimidated. Again, chain of thought is just saying, think it through step by step and explain to me what you're doing. That's all a chain of thought is. A 0 shot, 1 shot, view shot, I'm either giving it no examples, 1 example, or multiple examples of what I want. That's all that means.
I wonder if tech dudes came up with these.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're probably from the machine learning space, would be my guess. So I don't know if we need to watch this one.
No, I think we're good.
We can skip that one. Yeah, we've kind of covered that. This is controversial, I would say. Some people say this helps, some people say it doesn't. There's all these kind of like, I would say trendy or, kind of viral like things where like threatening it, say you'll fire it if it doesn't do a great job, offering it incentives, saying I'll give you an ice cream cone if you do a fantastic job on this. And one that's been very popular is saying, take a deep breath. And apparently, because these large language models are bad at math, which kind of makes sense if you think of, 1 plus 1 isn't a probabilistic answer. I want it to be 2 100% of the time, but large language models can only look at that in a probabilistic language sense. And so for that reason, they wind up being not as good at math as you might want. But asking them to take a deep breath first, for some reason, seems to improve their math skills. Again, not sure why. And again, the people who make these things don't know why. There are all these just emergent capabilities of these systems that have come out from just giving these extremely smart language models enormous amounts of data and processing power, and the people who develop them and work on them are just as surprised as the rest of us. Just kind of disturbing, but also cool. All right, Kim.
All right, so
I haven't seen that one before. See, and again, I'm sure you didn't use like Monet, in this.
Oh, impressionistic.
Yeah, but like anyone who sees that is gonna think, water lilies, right? Like it's just so.
But will the estate of Monet sue me?
I don't.
I don't think so. I'm not going to worry about it. But we're just talking about kind of, and this is really more using it as a thought partner and using and being iterative when using AI. And I think if you go to the next slide, think of it as literally a conversation. And you can always start again with a new conversation. You can always save an old prompt. Oh, I liked it up till here. And then kind of put those same prompts in. You can do a lot of those kinds of experiments. So try like different kinds of dialogue. Each person will find a different style that is like their own with these tools. Again, asking questions, asking it for guidance. I remember very early on, I needed to give it like, oh God, like 20 sample, interviews or something that had been anonymized. But I was like, how do I give it you all this content? And it said like, give it to me 6 at a time. Okay. So, you can ask it for more clarity. Often what I'll do when I'm starting, like say I was planning a speech and I needed its help and kind of talking points. What I found is helpful is I first will ask it for an outline. I'm doing this, and then I'll look at that outline and see what I think of that outline. No, actually, this outline was pretty good, but could you please emphasize X, Y, and Z point more? Okay, and once the outline gets to a place where I'm kind of happy with it, then I'll say, and again, happy enough, because remember, I'm going to actually take it and work with it myself. But then I'll say, okay, now please expand upon this first section. And I find that it works better going incrementally and expanding like that than trying to say, give me all of this at once. Give me a whole dissertation. It's not gonna, the quality loses. And I found that the same thing with even these reports. I was writing a report yesterday where there were different chunks of content that I was having to give a certain style for, recommendations and success measures. And I find that if I gave it like one at a time, it's better than if I try to give it like a full list, because it just doesn't do as well.
The recording has stopped.
It stopped recording, but we're still recording.
Yeah.
We're still recording. So anyway, it's a conversation that you're having.
This meeting is being recorded.
So this is another just sample. And part of the reason that we do these recordings instead of showing you these live is that I do speed these up a little bit, because it would just take time to wait for the, not tons of time. I'm speeding them up a little bit, but so this is like, for an example, this is a planning phase for a workshop. I think this is about bridging the generations in the workplace, a workshop that I was planning. So, okay, so help me plan this. Here it's giving me, it's asking me for, I've asked it to provide me with questions to help it provide me with a better answer. Like, do you have any questions that will help you do this job better? Okay, that I found to be pretty effective. And you can also, and again, you'll get all these samples. You can say, ask me questions and give me your assumptions. So you don't have to like type stuff that's really obvious. So here I'm basically asking it very incrementally to build through this plan. Now it's giving me the workshop overviews, the objectives, a more detailed session plan. What are the logistics I have to think about? This is the budget I had. Right, so that's just an example of kind of working with it as a thought partner in conversation. And I think,
and by the way, by default, these things are unfailingly polite, to the point of, almost being boring. So, but you can, again, change that with a role. So you can say, I'd like to help me out, but be like my snarky coworker, who makes smart aleck comments and kind of razzes me from time to time, and it will. It will do it in then you have
instead of saying
more
certainly,
a little more sassy intern, if that's what you want,
Okay, so yeah, so this term prompt engineering, which Ethan Mollick doesn't give engineering a long shelf life in this, because at some point, and probably not too far in the future, I think the AIs will get much better at prompting themselves. We're not there yet, and I think understanding prompts and how to interact with these systems is helpful no matter what happens in terms of what advances it makes. But really think of it as experimentation, as opposed to engineering, right? So it's iterative. You will have a personal style. The systems have different styles. As I said at the beginning, Claude is who I go to if I need something more writerly. And ChatGPT, super versatile.
And something on this note, I just want to say this really, really clearly for anyone who feels like any of this is like sophisticated or advanced or difficult anyway. In my view, as someone who's been in technology for a long time, AI, these large language models are the most democratizing advance since the graphical user interface and the mouse in terms of making computing and technology and the capabilities that are there available to everybody. Because all you need to interact with these tools is the language that you speak. That is it. And that is, there's nothing more sophisticated you need than that.
And it speaks many languages too, so it's not just English.
Yeah.
Different ones
Although
handle.
they're better in English than in other things, because of course they've been trained mostly in English. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
An infographic. Josh, this is yours.
Yeah, so examples of things they're not really good at right now. So you know, I wanted to you know, make a stakeholder impact chart for me, which it suggested it would do. What you're not seeing there is it saying, oh sure, I can totally do that. Here's all the things. It really sounds like it's going to do a great job. And that stakeholder impact chart infographic is absolutely incoherent and makes no sense. So anyway, and that's very consistent right now. It, for whatever reason, they're just terrible at infographics. Something about, like, they're great at making images, great at writing words, really bad at making images that have words in them. Does not get the sort of language plus image connection as yet. So this is from Ethan Malik. I would say Kim and I, you know, there's the famous, like, Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours. So 10 hours, that seems a lot more reasonable. But it takes, that's his estimate for, you know, how much it takes to really get pretty good at using these tools, just to learn what they're capable of, what they're not, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and enough to really start using it for your work on a regular basis because you see where the value is. And in my view, there are very few people, and probably zero knowledge workers, who can't get meaningful benefits in their daily life and work from using AI. These are incredible tools. All right, Kim, you want to take us home?
Okay, so, you know, I encourage you to, as you start to use these tools in your organization, and the next session is going to be more on organizational adoption, and it's in June. So one of the things you can start doing is sharing prompts amongst your staff if you have other colleagues who are using it. So fostering culture of knowledge through learning how to use these tools together as an organization. You know, but come to our next session and hear about the policy more in details before you do that. But so I think heading home, I think we're I just want to talk about some of the resources that are available. Practice. Okay, we've said this 1,000 times. This is getting to Carnegie Hall. Okay, so you will get for today the samples of today's prompts, so you don't have to remember them. And then Josh last night sent me this Claude Anthropic. Now it's a little nerdy at first. So if you go to the corporate clairvoyant, right? If you go to that one, so you get the link for this. It's really that part that's the user. Because at first it looks kind of like techie, right? But you're looking at what they put in their prompt itself, right? So you're going to, you know, giving it. You have to get the report though.
Yeah, hang on. Okay, let's see what I have handy here. Perfect. It's the one our colleague Kareem was part of writing.
And so this just gives you samples, many, many samples. And this someone had asked earlier about giving documents and links to AI tools. Claude is really great at with attachments. Doesn't go on the web. But this is an example of taking the prompt that Claude, you know, Anthropic had prepared, sticking it in the chat, and then adding the document and seeing what you get.
Right, and Don asks, which is the best for someone just starting out in terms of most user friendly? I mean, they're all pretty user friendly. I think Claude right now is probably where I would start. This is what you're looking at right now, and this is actually the free version. I've let my subscription lapse as of this month because I'm paying for too many AI and other tools. So, and we can give a quick. I mean, there are a ton, but Claude is one. The other one that we use a lot is ChatGPT, and then the other big one is Copilot, which is here. Those are really the big three right now, and then there's some of the open source models that are pretty popular. Oh, Gemini, I'm sorry. We don't have access to Gemini at RoundTable, but I can show that. Yeah, I can show that in my private one. Close that, and
Joshua and I have found these tools so valuable. Just to let you know,
this is Gemini.
we've
Yeah,
paid
those
for
four are probably the big four. Yeah. I think, do we have any other slides I need to show, Kim? I'm sorry.
We're at questions. So we have 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
I saw a few questions in the chat from earlier that I want to mention to kick us off. Someone asked, where is the information AI uses stored? And does each AI company have its own database?
You want to take it, Kim? I want to take that one.
I can start it. Yes, they all have their own data sources. That's part of the proprietary nature of these different tools. They can sort of boast different sizes of data sets. And what was the first part of that question?
Where is all the information AI uses stored?
On their huge, humongous infrastructures.
Yeah, and the main thing to be aware of is when you're putting something in a prompt. So, you know, we have, I think you probably covered stuff about it last week, but you know, anything I pasted here, right? So if I put, you know, the name Joshua Peskay here, that name, as soon as I hit enter, right, is being used to retrain the model. It's additional data that I'm now providing to OpenAI, right? That goes back into the train database. Okay, and so that remains with them unless you're paying for something that is giving you protection where your data is not being used to train the model. But even in those cases, all of these public companies that aren't the open source models, so all the four we just showed you, they still have to look at your prompt because they have to be able to moderate. So if you're saying, I would like to build a nuclear bomb, they have to be able to say, no, you can't. And they can't do that without having some moderating capabilities. So even if you're not having your data used to retrain, you still don't, it's not like Signal or something like that where they're not seeing it. Okay, they are seeing your prompts in all of these models. The only way to avoid that is to get an open source model and run it on your own computer.
I can keep going with some of the questions in the chat if you guys are good with that. Yeah. So next question, which would you recommend for creating workflows or work models?
Again, I've not had good luck, and I do a lot of like business process diagrams in my day-to-day work. And man, I want these things to like, here, let me describe this, and whoop, it's really it's not great. And again, it's that mixing of words and image and text, or graphic and text. In that case, you know, I would, if you want to try, and there are tools in ChatGPT Plus, and this is almost like a whole other class that we could teach would be on some of these advanced tools. And using ChatGPT Plus, you get into the whole arena of GPTs, which Josh mentioned earlier. And some people have developed kind of little ChatGPTs that are designed more for like process diagrams. I haven't had a ton of luck. I still do them better, but that I'm sure they will do it better than me soon.
So we have two more
also,
questions. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
I was gonna say the one you work with, like the four that we just walked through, they're all very strong. They have different strengths and weaknesses. They're also all changing all the time. So if you are, exploratory enough and you're willing to pay for a few different ones like Kim and I, then you have the luxury of trying and seeing how does it work on this versus that one. But otherwise, I'd say just stick to one and just keep trying with that one. They're very, very similar in terms of their capabilities.
If you paid for one, ChatGPT Plus, hands down. If you already have Microsoft, like in your organization, and you turn on the enterprise copilot, then it's private. They have limitations, doesn't save any of your chats. So that's partly how it keeps it's private.
I have another question here in the chat too. So someone asked, you mentioned interns. It's not real people interns behind the scenes loading information, is it? It's all algorithms.
Not that we know of. That would be quite a
web,
feat.
right?
Yeah, that'd be quite a feat for the company. No, they're we think of, but we think it's useful to think of them like interns. But no, these are all just auto-generated. It's all computer processing and data behind the scenes. There's no humans there.
But think if there's an intern that doesn't have any knowledge of, like, that's like how explicit your instructions need to be.
Can AI do animations?
Yes, there are tools that will make videos. They're getting really better all the time. There's a few different ones. What has gotten incredibly good is music. AIs can make songs that you would never be able. If I gave you 3 songs and one of them was AI and 2 of them are actual songs, none of you would do better than Chance differentiating the AI song from the 2 actual ones at this point. Video is still a bit glitchy and doesn't, you'll have all these weird artifacts in it, but there are tools that will do it.
And with the songs, here come the lawsuits, right? And it can also mimic, you can also do voice stuff. So that's what we're talking about in terms of cybersecurity and bad side of things. People can use some of these tools to make it sound like people said things they didn't.
Here I have a question about, would it be a bad idea to give the tools your board meeting minutes to summarize? And if so, please elaborate on why.
If it's not
go
ahead.
It depends. So if you're using Copilot and your data is protected, and this information isn't something you'd be concerned about Microsoft getting a subpoena for. So my other life is cybersecurity, which is where I spend most of my time. So if you're dealing with like legal subpoena, right? If I'm giving my board minutes to Copilot, then in theory, Microsoft's got it somewhere in their system and they could be subpoenaed for it. Okay, but if you have this protected, it's not being used to retrain anything. So if someone was going to be recording board minutes in a Microsoft Word document and store it in your OneDrive, then you're not exposing anything else by sharing it with Copilot to get a summary or get something else. So you could absolutely do that as long as you have the appropriate data protections. But if you don't, then those board minutes are being used to now retrain and could in theory be pulled by someone else simply prompting it and asking what were the board minutes of this meeting on this date, and the large language model might tell them. Hope that answers the question. Is that Ricardo or Bruce? Yeah. Hopefully that helps.
ChatGPT plus Teams.
ChatGPT Plus is not. ChatGPT Team is. I'll go to OpenAI. Hang on.
And Stefan, it's ChatGPT Plus. You can build your own GPTs. But the whole creating an expert on your organization, good right now for internal uses. Externally, it's a more complex development task ahead, like making a chatbot that can answer questions publicly. You want to be very kind of careful about that.
Great, thanks, Kim.
I have another interesting question here. Can AI have child-safe, child-appropriate settings?
Not at this point. I haven't seen it. I'm sure it's all coming.
The public models are pretty good. They're not going to like the four big models we talked about. I describe them often as pretty heavily nerfed at this point. So I'd be perfectly comfortable with my child using one of those. But when you get into the open source models, absolutely not.
Ooh. Yeah.
Okay. One more. Has anyone developed an AI prompt thesaurus?
The Claude Anthropic thing is a little bit of a prompt thesaurus. But there's not like Merriam-Webster's type of thing where they've all been collected into one place. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Maybe
Yeah,
they'll
I'll be honest. Like it's prompts are like you will have these prompts that where someone has just who had a very specific need to do something very complex has spent months like prompting and reprompting and reprompting and reprompting and then says, you know, I've got this thing and it really does a great job with like the large language models. And if you find one like that that's useful to you, then you know, Yahtzee, that's great. But for the most part, most of us have like just a different need. So you're better off developing your own prompt. But going to any of these kind of larger prompts like that Anthropic library we shared and seeing how they're working and then just applying that to your need is really where I've had the most success.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I don't necessarily copy their prompts, but I look at how the thought process and how they're asking.
I'll give you a do I have time for a or are we too far over, Amy?
No, we're good. We're actually in 10:15.
Sure, I'll give like a personal example of something that was just profoundly successful for me, just as an example of the way that you can use these. So my daughter, I live in New York City. My daughter was applying to high schools, and so I had to write like 4 different high school essays for 4 different high schools here in New York City, and my wife had asked me to just help her with those. So all 4 of those high schools were kind enough to publish the rubrics that they use to grade those essays. So I created separate prompts for each of the schools that included the rubric and basically said, I'm going to give you an essay. I want you to use this rubric. I want you to score it. I want you to give feedback on where it's weak, where it's strong, and how to improve it so that it scores higher according to this rubric. And every time my daughter would hand me an essay, I would feed it into this. I would give her that feedback and say, here's what it said. It never wrote a single word for her, right? But she got exceptional scores on all these essays. She put in the work of going and taking that feedback and improving it and giving it back to me. And I gave her the choice because it was giving them scores. And I said, you can keep giving it to me until it's giving you a perfect score in every one, or you can say it's good enough and stop when you want.
Wow.
And that worked exceptionally well.
She got into a really good high school.
That's a really great learning tool for her too. Now she knows how to use it really well in that way.
What's ironic about it, here's the funny part. She hates AI, gets mad anytime I use it for anything, and actually when she found out that I had used it for that, got really mad at me, even though she got great scores on it.
It's
And
'cause Dad's
not because
using
she
it.
felt like
Oh,
she
no.
cheated. She felt like she worked, he just hates AI.
But Joshua, that's assuming that the human using the rubric is going to evaluate it the same way
Yeah,
AI did.
absolutely. Yeah.
There's room for humans
Yeah.
to do things differently or not pay attention or have another interpretation that it worked
100%.
out.
Or
Yep.
even an agenda that
Or institutional priorities outside of what the rubric said. But that's cool.
Yeah. Again, human in the loop. Totally agree. And that's, you know, it's first, now final, and human in the loop. But I was the human in the loop, as was my daughter the whole way. Like saying, do we like this feedback? Do we not? So.
Very interesting. I was going to add that I think that if anyone is, tentative about using all these amazing takeaways from today, maybe just start like for personal use. I think we're all, focused on how we can use this for our jobs and our organizations. But like last night, I was reading a book and I asked ChatGPT to just summarize the chapter I read if I missed anything. So, I mean, there's just fun ways to start small and then get bigger to all the great ideas you mentioned.
And I can't like strongly enough say I would really encourage people to just get comfortable with interacting with these tools and what they do, because the next wave of this is going to be agentive AI, which is a fancy term for agents, meaning like it's where an AI has access to like my DoorDash account, and now I can go to ChatGPT and say, could you order dinner for my family of 4 based on, you know, the favorites from that we ordered last time, and can you have it here for 6:30 tonight? And you've given it the permissions to those different things, and it can actually take actions in the world for you to perform tasks with an objective. And that is already here. There's, if people want to look, there's something called the Rabbit R1, which is a device that does some of these things that you kind of carry around with you. You can point it at a menu and say, can you order me, you know, a dinner from this restaurant that's vegan, you know, blah, 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 and it'll just go do it. It's still very, you know, buggy and all that good stuff, but that's going to be the next iteration of this. And these skills that you're learning will help you tremendously when we get into that world.
And stay tuned for risks and responsibilities when it comes to agents. On June 27th, I think is the next session, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, I don't think we have any more questions left. I did want to remind everyone that we did change the date for the next AI adoption plan. It was originally June 20th, but now it's June 27th, still virtual from 9 to 10:15. So again, if you have already registered for that, please double check that you can make June 27th just a week later. Thank you so much, and thank you for your apologies for the what's it called? The inconvenience. So, thank you. And if no one has any more questions, I think we can thank our presenters so much for a great virtual session, and I think we're okay. We're good.
You guys are going to send the recording out to all of us?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Recording and all the links in that PDF too, with the prompts that we covered today. Kim gave us a really, really great document for you guys to use.
Great. Thank you so much. It was great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Bye.